Bar is doing its thing. One of my techie guys said, "Oh, you have the blue circle of death."
I think that came up when did that start? The Vista had the blue circle.
Maybe. All right, so we are now live on YouTube. Go back to Zoom just to see if the Zoom meeting is up. I don't, we are the only participant. I'm gonna move this part over maybe to you, Brad, so just in case if somebody else wants to sign in, they'll pop in here.
Right.
We could just keep a half an eye on that. That would be great.
Sure.
So we're ready.
We are ready.
Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order. There are three members of the planning board here, Diane Ray, Brad Sika, and myself. Our first thing on the agenda is our cemetery ordinance proposed changes. Questions?
I think it should just be stated for the public record that there is no public in attendance at this public hearing. Let me make sure that there are copies here just for our edification of both the changes are on one and the clean copy is on the other one. We would have visually, but just for review here.
Thank you.
All the changes identified, and this has the clean copy.
I've got that.
Oh.
My fix.
Oh, as far as Canton Mountain, I didn't open up the article, but it seems like, was it back like in 2014, there was like a news article, like the Sun Journal, or something talking about how this cemetery was found, meaning it really does exist.
It does. I know some people that have been there. There's just no. It's all landlocked by private land and there's no record of who inhabited. So
there's something there, but nobody knows who's buried there and when they died. Nobody knows
anything.
Oh.
That as far as they can see, there's probably like fieldstone marking and there's a wall around with an opening, but yeah.
I feel like it's good to have it in here.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
that you don't lose that little tiny bit of history, but and somebody at some point might be able to poke into that and discover some more about it.
Yeah.
But
because my dad had it on the list and I, questioned, and then there was one other one he had on the list that I'd asked. Come to find out the property owner bulldozed those into the. He didn't want people on his property. But so we. Yeah.
But the bodies are still there. I mean, the
He just
skeleton.
buried the stones
Okay.
because he didn't want anybody on his property.
so I guess we should do we've done a spell check on this, we've done a final check on punctuation, all those kinds of things. Do we believe this is prepared to submit to the select board for inclusion on the warrant for town meeting?
I do.
So how about if I make a motion that the cemetery ordinance revisions as noted here be submitted to the select board for inclusion?
I second that. All those in favor?
Well, actually, before, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, can I just,
Okay.
would it be possible if it really does exist? Because at first when I saw the line that says legend has it, I thought of a map legend. I thought, oh, maybe the map legend has it noted, but then I thought, oh, no, I think it.
I don't, do you have it on a map? Nobody's,
No,
Brian said it's not on a map. Nobody knows who's buried there.
So-
Nobody knows when they were buried or died. So there's zero information, other
Okay.
than knowing that there's one that used to exist there.
yeah,
Oh, okay, so that parenthetical is really necessary, then that's.
Well, I think so, so that people don't believe that there's visible, something the town's maintaining or anything like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it, okay,
to
okay,
say, some people, I think, question if it is, if it was, yeah,
okay.
all those in favor then? All the yeses have it.
Okay.
Okay, then we have, I'll wait for Diane to catch up.
The question, the town sexton is present even at the Canton Point one?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
All right, so have we officially closed the public hearing?
I guess so.
yes, and those, the Pine Grove and Canton Point are the only two active, which I think is kind of weird to say cemeteries, but there is room in the others. Should somebody, you know.
In any of these, like even Staples Hill?
Well, yeah.
There's still some, but not as much space, right?
Well, we think they moved some of Staples Hill to Pine Grove.
Oh,
So the April 17th meeting minutes are
oh, yeah,
on the screen. Apologize for not putting it out. We had everyone except Robin here. On the 17th, 2 weeks ago, you were somewhere else.
You're asking,
When the legal,
I was
when
here.
the lawyer was here?
I came in a little late.
Okay.
Look at me going. Yes.
No, I can never type a library. What is it? Late. So we had Brian and Alex Prinkle were here. Our attorney. Oh, yeah, you moved to accept the meeting minutes, so I'm assuming you were here.
Cause
Sorry.
and Dawn's last name is L-Y, not two E's.
Oh, how can I have it down? Well, it's probably in my phone incorrectly. All right. Got it. So we did review the cemetery ordinance feedback from the town attorney and incorporated his changes. We still have to get, I was telling Robin before you got here, Brad, that we just need to get clarification, because we submitted the sewer ordinance, both the original with the changes marked and the new one. The attorney said he didn't have it, Brian said he sent it. So nobody's, as far as I know, nobody's closed that loop to make sure that he has it and is actually reviewing it. We did not make very many changes. There should be no reason why that couldn't be included and shouldn't be moved along in the same timely manner.
Yeah.
But it feels like things are just ground to a halt there. And we're not allowed to communicate with the town's attorney directly. So I don't know what's happening with that. So we should follow up with that. But this is the meeting minutes from last week. So there was a brief discussion on the sewer ordinance. Let me just say, this was, cluster housing, I do have a copy of that we can put up tonight. I've been reading some of the other neighboring cluster housing ordinances in the last week, and I feel like we should just take a little bit more time on that. So I feel like we have to really position cluster housing, and we can talk about that in our meeting tonight, but I feel like we need to set a better stage for understanding what cluster housing is and why we need it. I feel like maybe we should clean up our ordinance a little bit.
I'm wondering, oh, I guess it's okay for me to just comment. If the terms or the concepts of cluster housing and walkable cities, if they're synonymous terms, or if they work together, because I remember, I'm trying to think if it was back when I worked in the Architecture Resource Center when I was in college in Michigan. But this idea of walkable cities and how one can design a space. I don't know, Canton's not a city, but I'm thinking like walkable town, where you can actually hit the things you need by just walking from place to place. Now, cluster housing may or may not result in that. It just depends, but it seems like it's more for a way to have a housing project that is focused in one area that you can then allocate the other for land conservation and things like that. So I don't know how often these two concepts intersect, but yeah, anyway.
I think they do. But before we get into that in more detail, could we just approve the meeting minutes
Oh,
of April 17th? That's it.
I motion
Okay.
to approve. Sorry,
Second.
I will stop reading for a minute. All those in favor? As we all say yes. Okay.
So then move back to tonight's meeting minutes.
I do want to say Kathy mentioned the other day, she needs minutes.
Yep.
We're severely lacking and turning them in.
Oh, and then that gets uploaded on here, actually, yeah.
Okay. We don't have any CEO actions as far as I know. I forgot to look in the box before she locked us out of the office.
I think we got sidetracked. And this is his last week.
I know. So let's go down to old business. So let's talk about cluster housing for a brief
Yes.
moment. I think, Bradley, your comment is right on track. I think the impetus for cluster housing was natural resource conservation. And how do you optimize the use of a piece of land where under normal minimum lot size types of ordinances, you could get 3 houses on something, and you now get 6 there if you adopt a cluster housing ordinance. There are some additional ordinances that I will send you guys links to that I was looking at today. For example, and one of those you had already sent around the Kennebec Valley
Yes.
one. So the town of Arundel has one, cluster plan unit development. So they just describe it. This was the one, this is a 1-pager as an amendment, but I thought they had some interesting things there to kind of position it and sell it and like why this is important. I don't know if we need perhaps to do that. And then one of these was, this is the Kennebec one. This might be the Kennebec. Yeah, this was the Kennebec Valley one that you sent around that talks about a model open space subdivision ordinance, but open space is kind of the other flip side of the coin of cluster housing, right? So the intent is you put the houses closer together so you have this other open space.
Right.
So they're calling it an open space ordinance instead of a cluster housing ordinance. So as I was reading through all these, I'm like, maybe we should think a little bit more about how do we position it first for the town, because the last one was some time ago. And I don't know that people really think about it anymore. And if we're gonna put it back top of mind, maybe we have to explain it a little bit.
Yes.
I like it, that version of open space more than the cluster housing, because like, I don't think people understand that.
Right.
I do.
Yeah, that's a nice terminology.
So this little introduction I thought was very good, right? The state converted over 869,000 acres of rural land to suburban use in the last 20 years. Second only to Virginia. But the loss of like this rural land is impacting everything from wildlife to natural resources. So if we want to keep the natural resources, do we have to perhaps be a little more dense in our housing? So I feel like maybe we should take a stab at rewriting that our ordinance to reflect more of the positioning of it before we just jump in and say
A more
20,000
positive,
square feet.
Yeah.
Right? And
a more positive spin on it.
well, if people 20 years from now look back on it, they're gonna go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Or why was that? Why was that important to the town? And I know we had some feedback from a select board member at the last meeting who's like, you shouldn't be doing any more ordinances because it just takes up time from the legal time and that's money. And I'm like, that's our job. That is what we're supposed to do is update.
But it's like you said, though, this was written however long ago. Things have changed a lot. Views and mindset, and we've got to go with that.
Can we clarify? Because I think probably what we tend to do is just say, oh, the state's suggesting cluster housing. Let's copy it and implement it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could put a little more thought into that, just so it's better understood
Mhm.
by people.
Well, and if you think about the fact that how many of the board members have been elected thus right now? What I mean by that is, not everyone's elected, some are appointed, given whether elections are being held or whatever. And I'm not talking about campaign cards or anything like that. I'm just saying, what I'm trying to say is, in some ways, it could be seen as a mandate. If people are elected at large, that this is in fact this is the task they want us to do. I mean, if they don't like it, then you would think that they wouldn't put together the group that, I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. Maybe, but I'm just saying that's another way of looking at it. I'm not I see where other people's points of view are. I'm just saying. We might as well do something while we're being paid to.
Well, I feel like, in the state mandates, every town has a select board, a planning board, and appeals board.
Mhm.
So we're appointed, I mean, the town has to have a planning board. And that is our task.
Yeah.
I think, is to update or make sure the ordinances are relevant and current.
Yes,
Because otherwise we have nothing else to do, really. I mean, what I mean by that is there
Well-
are things we could do, but you know.
Let's go to plan, the next item on the agenda, because the,
And I just want to emphasize, I understand where others are coming from. Meaning as far as financial, I'm just saying what you
But like
want
you
us to
said,
I mean,
do.
the one or two ordinances that we send out for legal review annually is not expensive in the bigger scheme of things.
like I said, some of these are so old that, yeah,
Well, and like we just found out that the automobile junkyard nuisance ordinance, nobody has the signature page that it was attested at this day at this time. So that would be something, if we change nothing on that and just simply add that page at the back. That could be something that could be done pretty quickly, maybe in the fall, if we do a comprehensive plan town meeting. We could get that signature page added to that. At that time. I mean, I'm just trying to clean
Yeah.
up all these things and make sure they're
well,
dated, signed legally, and are current. Because that's,
so here's a question, maybe it's more for you. Since like the junkyard one is not signed, all that. Does that make it a little harder to enforce? Should we, should someone step up and try to enforce it or
Well,
not?
I would think that if you were to take that case to court, you'd want to have an exhibit, and the exhibit you'd want to show would be the ordinance, but if the ordinance isn't signed, that undermines the exhibit.
Yeah,
You know. Who knows if that would even be admitted into evidence, because what proof, what indicia is there that it's,
because is it
you
even
might be able to
dated?
go to a town meeting minutes. And find
Maybe,
maybe the town meeting warrant from that day that says that. And I don't know right now how to backtrack. Do you have to get all the select board members that were there in 2018 to
Hmm.
attest that they signed it? I don't know. That's a good question to find out. Because that could be the simplest thing, would simply be add that page and make a notation that, as of 2025, the signature are testing to the 2018 version.
Yeah.
Of that ordinance. But that would probably be the best. I mean, that may be the simplest way.
I don't know. Hopefully they find that the one with the signatures, that'd save a whole lot of.
I've just asked
process.
Kathy and she didn't have it. in her-
I was gonna say, if I were a betting person, probably.
I know, well, and that's why, like, okay, they're all up on their website, well, that's up there, but it's not.
Well, that's it. I mean, yeah,
We'll see.
if I want to say to you, okay, Diane, you need to clean up your junkyard because of A, B, C, D. But
Are these searchable PDFs?
Yes, I don't know, ones that are on the town website,
Right.
well, let's find out, hold on. Ordinances, so let's go to the. I don't care, comprehensive plan. Oh, that's a giant one, I should not have downloaded. I would try to open that one on Wi-Fi, but. Look, it's a blue circle again.
But that's old enough to gauge if it is searchable or, you know,
Yes.
for example.
that makes me think.
And the
I
reason
have-
why I'm asking this,
Uh-huh.
because let's say I want to do a project, purely hypothetical.
Yeah,
Let's say, okay, let me put in a, you know, this type of a housing situation. And I'm trying to get information from the ordinance. If it's not searchable, I'm gonna have to scroll through, you know.
Yep,
And people want they want the answer now.
all right, let me try to. Let me
Diane's on this, oh,
smaller one to open, sorry, that's just gonna be too
I was
big.
gonna say, the circle of death, gotcha.
I'll go to the website. Policies and ordinances, let me find a smaller one, sorry, that was way too big. Recreational land use?
Yeah, I need to look that one up for some reason. Question someone asked me and I'm like,
Well, while this is loading, for our next round of discussion, our code enforcement officer has officially resigned
Right.
after this week. I think we need to go back and look at the last select board meeting. Because I believe it was suggested that the planning board take on much of the role of the code enforcement officer.
yes,
Yeah, read everyone pack your. tape
However,
measures.
nobody's communicated that to us.
I was here for that, yes.
So we can go find it and look at it and see what was said during that meeting, because nobody's said anything officially in writing or said to us, hey, you're gonna have to take on these additional tasks.
I had one ask me what I thought about it and I said, I know I don't have the qualifications to tell anybody. And especially like plumbing,
Well, we're
That's the
not
one.
licensed plumbing inspectors, we're not. A
You
number of
know.
other things, but if you're looking at just simply a permit, a building permit. We do that. It says searchable, so here's the, we're hitting land use, if I want to search for. I don't know. Regulate,
Or even a word on the first page.
yeah, I take it, that regulates
Oh.
on there,
Oh, it is.
and it's telling me it's not here.
Maybe it's always searchable. You know what I mean? Like this, maybe this program just has that as an option for whatever PDF.
Let me
But-
say, authority. 0. So I might have to download it and then search it. So I don't think I can search it on the. On the website itself.
Hmm.
Was there anything else here? No.
Is there no document that actually says what is to be done in the absence of a CEO? In other words, that's never been spelled out anyway.
Nope. No, but we have over time, I mean, most of it's before my time, a lot of the ordinances were shifted to put responsibility for review and approval on the code enforcement officer, because at one time, the planning board reviewed every permit application and approved all kinds of stuff, like not a licensed plumbing inspector, but you know, your plot plan, you have the right setbacks, you know, or that kind of thing. We never approved like occupancy permits to make sure like your plumbing, your electricity up to code, all those things.
Amy Myers wants to join.
There you go.
Amy Myers, I hope she hasn't been waiting long. I'm so sorry.
Is she in
If
now?
that's, she's joining now.
I don't know if she can hear you.
It still says joining, but
We'll give her a minute.
I mean, we might even want to inquire how long she's been waiting, because I'm apologetic about that. But oh, and maybe she wanted to talk.
Maybe she's trying to talk about the. What?
We'll see. We'll
About to
ask
see
her
if she has questions about the cemetery.
if she's joining.
So. Excuse me. So sorry, so our discussion about cluster housing is really review additional documents or consideration of repositioning.
Is she joined yet?
And still says joining dot. And I
Maybe
don't know
she
what
gave up.
that
It
means.
could be a lovely Wi-Fi. I don't know. Oh, there's enough.
Maybe I will, if I open up for, oh, that is open participants that. I can even message her, I think, and maybe I'll send her a message like, good. Oh, there are currently no participants in the meeting.
She gave up.
Oops. So you don't know who, we can't give her a call or.
I don't know who that is.
Amy Myers.
Yeah, was it with the Y? I'm assuming.
I don't remember, but I think. If there's an email associated with this account, it would also prompt saying someone's trying to join.
I stopped on Facebook.
Hmm.
Was it April 24th? Select board meeting?
Please hold. Yes,
Looking for the YouTube. Video of that. Let's see.
I had to double check. Today was May 1st.
Our Google Drive, where we have ordinances, I have to go back and double check. I may have inadvertently erased a couple files because I got a note saying on my storage on Google Drive, I was getting full storage. Did you want to delete full things? And I was like, sure. And so I started deleting a few things. I'm like, ooh, I think I'm deleting from that Google Drive. So I need to go back and make sure that all of our ordinances are back up.
For $9.99 a year, I think you could get more. That's what I pay, and I get a little more storage.
Well, it records all my, like, all my history, email history stays there too. I'm like, that can just go. But I thought that's what I was deleting, but I may or may not have deleted something.
I
So
understand.
if she's not there, let's go back. Wait, I don't want to listen to the whole hour. Do you know where in that meeting
Well, I know,
conversation was?
no, because right after the pledge, they went into executive session, which is blank.
Which we all know. They let go one of the drivers, and that's. Immediately posted open position after the executive session, so
Come on,
that's done.
we're on
Anyway,
recorded.
let's see where we're at. So let me zoom through here.
You know what? No, I know I don't have that agenda still in my I think stuff in my.
So that-
Grab the folder.
So I heard about that. Can we, when does it, how long before we go over to the next issue?
Well, they usually follow their agenda.
Yeah,
So if one were to pull up the agenda. it might-
Agendas.
I know sometimes
because
they
I
can
know it was
also.
last week, but I don't remember that far back.
I get spoiled at home because I'm hardwired into the Ethernet cable. And just. I shoot big files for work all the time. And I had to go to the town Wi-Fi. Excuse me. In the minutes, old business AvCog, Scott Mills resignation letter, so item 6, so after AvCog. Right. I don't know where that is. So here we're still discussing.
No, we would have to. Use planning board, let them know that's you can.
There,
Okay, so move back up.
let me go on that, I remember.
When are we discussing the?
Set it out there. This is, no, great time. Yeah, get it on the sign, right? And Hartford has, they posted to them as well, this Scott was Hartford, so. What about Peru? I don't think they've ever found anybody. Peru is still using the temporary guy for that. So, no, we don't have.
So the sport has at least a need,
But, yeah,
so I think you need to sit down and pool resources and talk with four towns and say. Cause that's a more enticing offer to,
yeah, it's what I realized with it, the last time, it was a waste of time. We sat down with Hartford and we didn't get anywhere. We asked questions and I think Peru, yeah, Peru was here, it was, Jack, oh, which is,
Jason,
no, yeah, Janelle, he was here.
yeah.
And we all said it's a need, and at the end of the meeting, we're nowhere, and there's never.
Gail and I did email back and forth, but at that point, neither one of us had anybody that was applying for anything.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, I mean, there's nothing against it, I just think last time it's kind of, we didn't get very far.
no, but I mean, my thought process being, if you're trying to hire somebody, four towns would be a better paycheck for them than one check. So, exactly. So, maybe that's something we need to consider is,
We can try.
we're not gonna know unless we try.
Yeah, part of that's gonna be, we also need to figure out coverage for starting.
Yeah,
We're in the heart of building season.
we, the board discussed it before.
Well, part of it is the people on the board that have covered it are no longer here.
No, but they
And I
are
think.
willing to do a couple.
Someone used to, yeah, the code enforcement, some of that used to for the regular permit, but, I think Marshall had to go through the public hearing process to sign it, but it could, if we want to, if we find something. I mean, I remember several people. Yeah, no, we would have to. Use planning board, let them know that's you can. usually smaller than that. Because it was the time period of the meeting, then going to look at it, then waiting for the next meeting, and. So, you know, didn't work out at all. Yeah, we started doing CEO things. Because wouldn't do any of the other cases of the CEO, like visiting places that we want to out and things like that. Which I thought we were gonna have like on one today tonight and it has to be.
So, yeah. I send an email to those three towns and ask if it's something they would be interested in, is maybe hiring a full-time CEO to split, CEO slash LPI, to split between the four towns.
Are there independent licensed plumbing inspectors? I would think they would be.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but
I would assume so.
Alright, so, we have a motion on the floor to accept Scott's recommendation or resignation letter, or.
He said,
And then, and second, okay. So I have a motion.
There's a
Second.
Epcot.
Over for a long time. All right, so the discussion was around. So I guess our discussion is, do we want to voluntarily take on things like building permit review? Because that is something that we could probably do. And I think the question, their comment is very valid. In the past, the couple times we've had to do it, we've been pretty prompt. Right, it's submitted to the office, comes to our attention. We usually go out pretty quickly and do the inspection and answer the questions. We don't say, well, let's review it today's meeting, and then in the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then with this, 2 weeks down the road, we'll decide whether or not we're gonna give you an approval for a building permit. We actually say, hey, our meeting's on Thursday, we just found this thing, let's get together Friday morning and go look at this thing, right? So we tend to be pretty prompt in our assessment of building permits. Is that something that we want to take on, or do we just want to wait and see what happens?
how many are they waiting on right now?
I don't
Since
know.
the resignation? How
Well,
many are-
his resignation doesn't take effect. This is his last week.
Oh,
So,
We'll kick in next week.
yeah. I mean, I would say, like you and I talked, and knowing it's time sensitive, that, yeah.
so have either of you done this before? I mean, I'm just asking historically.
The only site thing I've been on is solar farm.
I
And
mean,
what
we reviewed the barn permit for Kenny Robbins to build his
I was off,
running
I
shed.
was going that day.
Oh, I think I remember with because
Yeah.
he was in the flood zone and
Yeah.
but he wanted to have something.
Open and
yeah.
flowing. We reviewed a shoreline zoning permit, which we have to review those anyway.
Or, yes. Yes,
We're at the edge of the Canton Hartford line, he wanted to put in.
wait,
Yep, we reviewed the guy next to her, you can see his face, can't think of his name. He had the,
oh,
an
yeah.
existing footprint, and he also had an existing shed footprint, and he wanted to incorporate that into one building.
I remember the
and it's-
drawings. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
On
extended
here.
storage, so we've done that, we reviewed.
Part of the, no, we didn't, I was
Well,
gonna say,
trailer, the meeting before both your time, we reviewed a guy in the trailer park, that guy that owns the trailer park, put in a pump house, which turned out to be.
I came right kind of at the
a
beginning of
cabin.
that mess.
So,
It ended up being a 2-story garage,
well, he said it was gonna be a housing for his pump, or for a generator.
yeah,
Supposed to
Oh,
be just a housing to cover up a generator, and when that was what was permitted, and we went and looked at it, we're like, this, you have to reapply for a permit, this is a structure, like a
because
residential.
upstairs, yeah, he had an apartment up over.
oh,
Yeah,
Hmm.
so those, so, and we had to look at the potential marijuana establishments.
We went Town Farm Road.
solar establishment, so, I mean, we've done
Yeah.
some of this.
Now that you,
And I've been on some walks for things, you know, to see-
yeah,
Right.
now that you
or a couple of.
poke that memory, yes.
Yeah, so we have done them, and I think we're capable of doing them. I don't, but as they say, we're not licensed plumbing inspectors, we're not electricians, we can't deliver an occupancy permit. That says, hey, your sewer or septic is set up correctly, your water, your electricity, your plumbing, all that is up to code. We're not up to code people. But we can probably grant building permits. If we think we want to do that. As an aid until we get somebody.
And there wouldn't be many, it seems, that are going up
I
in
mean,
this
we
town.
had, there's like 17 over the last 2 years or something.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
that's it. That's not bad.
But we are coming up on building season, right? So now is the time when people are submitting all those permits because they want to get the construction done over the summer.
And even while Scott was in Florida, there were a couple that came in, I know, a couple different permits. That they just, the office faxed it to him or whatever,
Right, yeah,
because one of them, the bank, it had to be approved before the bank would grant the loan. So it was very time sensitive. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
How's that? That's a question. Could we take on the review of issuing of building permits, not occupancy permits?
Yeah.
Anything requiring licensed reviews like plumbing, electricity, septic, sewer, water, etc.
I love the capital not.
Well, one must have emphasis. So what do we think?
I say, yeah, I mean. As you, like I said, you reminded us of ones we have done. That, yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I make a motion. That we are willing to approve or look at building permits. In a time-sensitive manner until they do get a CEO. But not on any other. Reviews, etc., that require licensed. Yeah, you figure out how to, yeah.
But not things that require license.
Yeah. Definitely not, yeah.
Right, it's a motion.
Yes.
Second,
All those in favor?
Let's tell our compatriots. We just voted additional responsibilities. All right,
And this way Brad and Don will learn more about the town of Canton, maybe.
that'd be lovely.
all right.
You're thinking,
Yeah, well, I was thinking, do we have a document? Is there like has the town
Yes.
preserved a charter? Like what was like the founding document spelling out? Or the select board, do we have anything like that?
Finally, you should ask. Let's go to the planning board ordinance. That, I don't know that we need to look at that.
Sorry,
Just in time, we just gave you new responsibilities.
Yes,
give me new responsibilities,
We did.
okay,
and you see
Pull up a
our
chair.
audience.
Oh, look at you.
yeah. I saw it. Carol, at the Arts Alive thing, and I was like, oh, you gonna go down to the meeting? I was, nope. Okay,
So we're looking at the planning board ordinance because we just voted. Robin made a motion, Bradley seconded, because our CEO is retired. He's
Yeah.
retiring this week. That we take on the addition for time sensitive building permit reviews.
Yep.
We take that on, making it clear that we are not gonna review anything that requires license review, like plumbing, water, sewer, electricity. Until such time as they get a new CEO.
Okay.
And Brad was just asking about the planning board ordinance. So this basically establishes the planning board.
Mhm.
Terms of office vacancies, I don't think it tells you what our duties are. Limitations on the membership, if you can't have certain conflicts of interest.
Oh, duties and powers too.
But it doesn't really say anything about reviewing, and I know what happened in the past, as we listened to part of last week's select board meeting. Where they announced the retirement or the
Mhm.
resignation of Scott, and the select board was talking about why over time they. Took away a lot of the review processes from the planning board and gave it to the CEO. But most of that was because of time sensitivity.
Yeah.
Somebody would submit, like Friday, tomorrow, they'd submit a. Building permit, it would be 2 weeks before we review it, we get it, start
Yeah.
talking about it, and then you have to go review, it'd be a full month or so before you can get your. Permit, and
Okay.
so we talked about was working to respond in a timely manner.
Okay.
So if we say, hey, I need you 8 o'clock tomorrow to go look at this property, or 7 o'clock before work to go look at this property, can we do that? Can we start moving?
I see there's a section 8 that's entitled duties and powers. Is there anything there that's,
And we don't wanna push that off to the selectmen, correct?
They didn't volunteer,
They did or did not,
did not.
okay, okay, that's fine.
Well, it doesn't look okay, but it was just slow, I hit the. Plus button.
But we said, anything that, like the review licenses,
Mhm.
no.
You don't have to go to 200, but, all right, duties and powers. Preparation of data maintenance, removal, Ordinance amendment thereto, advisal may record encouragement, maintain good services. So. Pretty vague. So we did pass that right before you got here.
Okay,
I would love to have your input, because we can always take it back.
no, I don't mind it,
Okay,
just who's the one that's gonna be doing it,
I think we collectively are doing. it.
okay.
Cause I don't, well, what I found, we reviewed, because we've reviewed probably half a dozen or more in the past.
Mhm.
Is that when we look at it together, people go, oh yeah, what about this, and what about, if people catch things that one person may miss.
Yep.
So I think it's a good,
Okay.
at least 2 or 3 sets of eyes on it.
Right.
So before you got here, we discussed, first of all, we nobody for the public hearing.
Okay.
So we're good, I will let the town know that we have held a duly authorized public hearing. The ordinance is
Okay.
ready to go to town meeting. We talked, I'm gonna try to also get a hold of Brian, because at the meeting where the attorney was, at the last meeting, he said he didn't have the sewer ordinance. Brian said he sent it. I've never heard any closure on that conversation, like, other than Brian saying, yes, I sent it, I have proof in my send file that I sent it. I'm like, okay, but do we know that he's actually received it? And do we know that he's got it? And is it in his queue to review? Don't know any of that. So we'll try to close the loop on that. I've been reading up on the cluster housing ordinances of other towns, this past week, and we had a conversation about possibly repositioning that ordinance. Some towns called, and I've got a couple links, I'll send you an email, but, one town called it an open space ordinance.
Mhm.
Which is a whole different feel to it than cluster housing. And another town had a little brochure that actually positioned it as why they're doing it, a little more detail on why it's important and why they're doing it. Especially as the state is now talking about needing 40,000 new houses by 2030,
Oh, wow.
just to meet the housing demand. You know, how do you do that and still keep your open space that you want?
Right.
And why is it? So rather than kind of trying to rush through, let's try to get this ready for fall, but maybe reposition it a little bit.
Okay.
Before we start.
And we had one person that tried to join us and I clicked the button to admit them. Said joining ... for a while, and then the person dropped off, so we didn't, I don't know what the feedback was going to be. I felt a little bit bad that I didn't see it even earlier, but,
That's right.
yeah.
I didn't even see the link.
It's on the
Okay,
Facebook page.
okay,
But it went up about 15 minutes before.
okay.
Well, I get to come down a day ahead of time and do that if we're gonna put it there, because I only know how to do it from that machine if I'm using the town's account.
Mhm.
I mean, if I'm using my personal account and setting up a link, I can do that anytime, anywhere. But I'm not always able to get here
Right,
like Monday or Tuesday and set it up. And I have a question, because I said something, asked something to Brian about that, and he said Kathy can do that. And when I've asked Kathy about it, she's like, I kind of do that. So, but
what if? Um,
Yeah.
Google has a thing called like remote desktop.
Mhm.
So you put it, I do this all the time, you put it on put it on both computers. And from there, you can log in and poop, you can get into that.
But does it have to be, that has to be open and logged into?
It just has to be, it has to be on. I don't know.
I mean,
if-
I could, on the Mondays before our meetings, I've got a note on my Monday morning calendar at like 8 o'clock that says. Publish the agenda, and I can put down there, set up the Zoom meeting,
Yeah.
so that I try to get all that done on Monday. Now, I usually send it out late Tuesday.
Right.
But it's there on Monday as a reminder, I can try to do that,
But don't forget, they're only open till noon on Tuesday.
right? I know.
Cause
Right.
But I'm gonna be away for the next 2 weeks. I did send you the
Oh, the template, thank you.
for the meeting minutes.
All right, it'll look official. Then I've taken minutes before you've been so helpful in putting it into that template, but now I get to.
It's
Put in
your- it's in your
directly.
email.
Okay.
Okay,
And I will do that tonight. I will update the, I will get the approval.
Yeah.
I'll start with the most recent ones and start working our way backwards, because I've got quite a few.
Okay.
I'll get that done. So you zoomed in just in time to perhaps close us out.
all right. I motion to adjourn.
Well, The other question is, maybe toward sometime in early June, we can do a little bit more on the comp plan. I mean, we're gonna try to do these in the fall, like get the cluster housing ready for fall, comprehensive
Yeah.
plan ready for fall. Maybe sewer, because it didn't sound as if, the select board wanted to push the sewer to get on this particular agenda, even though it's ready to go.
Okay. Well, wasn't it brought to us by the townspeople saying, hey, like there's some issues with the sewer?
Some of us wanted an update.
it was, some of the select board looked at it and it was 40 years old.
Not quite that old, but
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah. From that, yeah,
Well, there were
but,
some other changes, but
yeah,
but as we remember, as we went through it in detail, we had very minor changes,
yeah,
very minor.
because
Okay.
I think it mimicked, according to what Dave Madison had told me, it pretty well mimicked
The state's
the state, and he said back whenever the Canton approved it, and whoever, they said the state sewer
They
people or
just
whatever,
copied it and pasted it.
yeah,
And
that it was one of the best they'd ever seen.
well, we found those gaps too, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's been XXX, like fill this in and nobody bothered.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
But the town's attorney, it should not be a complicated review.
Okay.
So shall we,
Are they just trying to, well, maybe they don't want to spend the money on the attorney to do that at the moment? I don't know,
I mean, but that's our
Okay.
job,
but
right?
I was gonna say, but they've already sent it,
correct,
but,
Okay.
yeah,
it has been sent, so.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to send it
Yeah.
back to the select board and say,
hello,
hey. This is where I think this is sitting. Can somebody who's authorized to talk to the attorney, please pursue this and ensure that it is in fact getting reviewed?
Yeah.
And let's find out if it's has any chance of being reviewed in time for this year's warrant. Now, that's only 6 weeks away, so.
The 12th of June.
Yeah, and then I get on there and
And they've got to get the warrant done on the 1st, I think, or
Yeah.
maybe not that soon.
Yeah, okay, so I will send that out.
okay,
Yeah, I think it's kind of feels like it's gotten lost in the spinning wheel.
I had another idea.
okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that this is the way to go, I'm just inquiring. Is the planning board authorized to send an email to, let's say, the chairman of the select board, but give a courtesy copy to the attorney? So the body of the email is addressed to that's not allowed?
No, and I'm not 100% sure that policy is legal, because we're not a subservient board to the select board. We are mandated by the state, but the town has all these 3 boards. We're trying to be good citizens and work together, but I don't know that that's actually a legal policy. But we will try to be good citizens.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because I know what I've heard since I've been around. The concerns were the lawyer's bill. When it came in, there would be charges on it, say from planning board or different selectmen contacting the lawyer that they didn't know about until they got the bill. So they wanted a little more
Right.
check and balance of who's contacting the lawyer so that it doesn't get so out of hand.
I've been told that it wasn't us necessarily.
Yeah, that,
Because I've been told, oh, there was all this thousands of dollars of double billing. I've asked
Yeah.
For copies of that, that's never been forthcoming, so I don't believe it's actually double billing, I believe it's individuals having conversations that weren't coordinated. And then running up the bill.
Double billing would be unethical, I mean,
No,
if that
Yes,
ever.
yeah.
It would be, or,
You know,
I mean.
that'd be
multiple-
illegal,
Multiple
probably.
select people contacting the attorney for the same issue, is what I meant, so that,
Oh, I
yes.
see.
So I think that was a concern more so than the planning board, but we got
Yeah.
caught up in the policy, and I think it's wasting a lot of time on our side doing that.
I think like Selectman Joe Smith was calling and asking about the cemetery ordinance, and then select person, the others didn't know, there was
Well,
no,
it wasn't ordinances they were called.
no, but I'm just, there was no cohesiveness about it.
So we'll see how that all plays itself out. Like, really? Anybody can dial a phone. But,
right,
and I do find, I always thought it a little bit disingenuous when people would say, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to, I'll do these other jobs, but I have time to
Do that.
try to make your calls on your behalf over here, like. Spending time trying to schedule a meeting with this planning board, having a third party in the middle of that conversation, why don't we just call directly to schedule a meeting, right? There's wasting a lot of third parties' time to do that, in my opinion. We will be good citizens. Resentfully, but we will follow. Any other public comment in today's meeting?
I'll try to zoom in 2 weeks if I'm
I will not.
of sane mind.
I'm gonna be somewhere in Zimbabwe. I
Oh,
will not
nice.
be zooming in, because it will be 6 hours time difference. So it'll be midnight. I will be blissfully, hopefully sleeping and not thinking of you at all.
And maybe times have changed since the end of Mugabe's rule, I wonder.
Yeah,
I don't know how Zimbabwe is today, but
so
I will
what
find out.
are you doing over there?
I'm going to South Africa. And doing a little bit, we're doing one safari in South Africa.
Nice.
One in Zimbabwe and one in Botswana.
But work
Nice.
also,
I've got a meeting in,
or are you just gonna go play?
well, it's mostly play, but I have a client who lives in Cape Town that I've been working with for 2 years, and he
Oh,
gives me
nice.
2 big projects every year. We've never met in person. And I did contact him a couple weeks ago. I said, hey, I'm gonna be in Cape Town. I've got perhaps these couple afternoons, we could jury work the schedule and be free. And he's like, I may be in the US that week.
Oh.
So we'll figure it out sometime, but cool, when it gets closer to the. So,
Oh, that's great. Please keep us updated about.
I
Yeah,
Your
will, and I sent a
impressions of-
note to my sponsored child, even though he's aged out of, the whole reason for going was to visit this kid that I've been sponsoring for 12 years or something. And he's aging out of the program, the sponsorship program. And then because of Ebola outbreak in Uganda, they canceled that portion of the trip. But I did send him a note and say, this is as close as I'm gonna get to the Uganda border. I'll be in this place at this time for 2 days, like. If you can make it out of the country, it'd be great to come.
Be cool.
So I would love to meet him.
I know said someone from Canton that's in Cuba this week, and I'm like, okay.
After what happened to the members of the US Embassy with that, what appears to have been a sonic attack, it's like a hard pass for me right now.
Where? In
When,
Cuba?
remember, under the Obama administration, we reopened the embassy, a US embassy in
Yes.
Cuba, but we had to shut it down because the employees of the US embassy during the Obama administration were suffering these symptoms that it was hard to pinpoint what it was, but it ended up, the best guess that we have is like a sonic attack.
Oh,
And I mean, like, what I mean is, I think there's sort of a headaches
Yeah.
or something, and they had,
Yeah.
and I don't think we were the only embassy. I also think the Canadians were affected too, but particularly us. So that kind of was a damper on any progress to the
Yeah.
relationship, even though the Cuban government said, oh, come on and investigate here,
so my 15-hour flight next week from Atlanta to South Africa, I have a lot of history stuff lined up to catch up on, so I can show up a little more informed.
Yes, Nelson
That'd be fun.
Mandela stuff.
Well, we're
might
gonna go
be-
see parts of Johannesburg and Soweto and those whole neighborhoods and that kind of thing. So I'm excited about that.
Very good.
And giraffes and a night safari.
That'll be cool. Take pictures.
I will.
Lots.
On my list this weekend is dump every photograph off my phone, like take all of it.
Right.
Get it cleaned up so that it's ready to go. I should
Mhm.
probably get it better.
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Perfect.
And now.
Well, thank you for coming.
And do I have to put something here?
You gotta.
Do I- if I